AITA for calling out my sister for secretly sending my daughter gifts behind my back. I, 34F, have a 9-year-old daughter, Ella, who's the light of my life. She's an incredibly sweet and thoughtful child, but she's also been going through a rough time since her father and I separated a year ago. It's been tough on her, and I've been trying to make sure she feels supported and loved every step of the way. I've also been making an effort to include both sides of our families in her life, despite the divorce, because I know how important family is. I have a sister, Becca, 31F, who's always been a bit distant. We've never been super close, but we get along well enough. I describe her as someone who's often the fun aunt at family gatherings, but she's also the type who doesn't always follow through with commitments. She's never been the best at communication, and she tends to do things her way, even when it's clear it doesn't always line up with what's best for others. A few months ago, Ella mentioned something that I thought was a little strange. She told me that Aunt Becca had sent her a care package with a few toys and some clothes. Ella was really excited, but also a little nervous about how to bring it up to me. I was confused because I hadn't been informed of anything like that. My sister and I talk regularly, and there's no way she would have sent a package for Ella without telling me, right? I decided to let it go and not make a big deal out of it, but then it happened again. Ella received another package from Becca about a month later. This time, it included a really expensive brand of shoes that I knew I hadn't purchased, along with a few other gifts. Again, Ella was excited, but still seemed unsure, like she didn't know if it was okay to accept them. She even asked me if I thought it was okay for her to keep the things from Aunt Becca, since she didn't want to get in trouble. At this point, I was really starting to feel uncomfortable. Becca hadn't even mentioned anything to me about these gifts, and while I know she means well, I didn't like that she was bypassing me as the mother and acting like the gifts were some kind of secret between her and Ella. I also didn't like that Becca was buying expensive gifts for my daughter without even asking me if it was okay. I'm not in a financial position to be buying my daughter high-end things like that right now, and I didn't want her to get used to things being handed to her without understanding the value of money. I decided it was time to have a conversation with Becca. I texted her and asked if we could chat. She agreed, and we set up a time to talk over the phone. When we got on the call, I started off by saying that I appreciated her wanting to spoil Ella a little, but I needed her to stop sending gifts without checking in with me first. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable with the secrecy and that I wanted to be involved in decisions that impact my daughter, especially when it comes to material things. Becca immediately got defensive. She told me that I was being controlling and that I should just be happy Ella had someone who wanted to spoil her. She told me I should be grateful that she was helping out since I was going through a tough time with the divorce. She said I was overreacting and that it wasn't a big deal. I tried to calmly explain that it wasn't about the gifts themselves, but about the way she was handling things. I told her that I wanted Ella to feel safe coming to me with things, not hiding them because she was worried I'd get upset. I also pointed out that I'm trying to teach Ella about boundaries and the importance of asking before receiving things, especially if they're expensive or if they come from someone outside of our household. Becca continued to argue with me, saying that I was being too strict and that I shouldn't try to control her relationship with Ella. She even went as far as to say that I was just jealous because she was doing things for Ella that I wasn't. This comment hit me hard. I'm not jealous of Becca's relationship with my daughter, but the fact that she would accuse me of that felt like a low blow. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about making sure my daughter felt secure in her relationships with everyone, including her aunt. I ended the conversation by telling Becca that I was disappointed in how she was handling things and that I didn't want any more surprise gifts. I also made it clear that I needed her to respect my boundaries as Ella's mother and to communicate with me before sending anything in the future. Becca didn't take this well and has since been distant. She hasn't reached out to either of us, and I haven't heard from her in over a week. I feel like I'm in the right here. I'm Ella's mom, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask Becca to communicate with me before sending gifts. At the same time, I don't want to cause tension in the family, especially between Ella and her aunt. I don't want Ella to feel like she has to choose sides, and I also don't want Becca to feel like I'm controlling her relationship with my daughter. But at the end of the day, my responsibility is to Ella, and I need to protect her and teach her healthy boundaries. So, AITA for calling out my sister and asking her to stop sending gifts to Ella without checking with me first? Maybe I overreacted, but I feel like I'm just trying to be a good mom. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I, 28F, got married recently to my now husband, Tom, 30M. We've been together for almost 5 years, and we had a beautiful wedding plan for months. I'm not super into big celebrations or being the center of attention, so we kept things relatively simple, but I still wanted it to feel special. For context, I've known my best friend, Emma, 29F, since we were kids. We've been inseparable through all the ups and downs of life, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. She's always been supportive, but she's also, well, a bit dramatic. Over the years, I've learned to brush off some of her more unpredictable moments, but I thought that wouldn't get in the way of the wedding. Here's the thing. I didn't choose Emma to be my maid of honor. I had my reasons. She's great in a lot of ways, but not in the way I needed someone for this role. She could be a bit of a drama queen, sometimes doesn't take things seriously, and I didn't want her to make my wedding about her. I asked my sister, Sarah, 32F, to be my maid of honor instead. Sarah and I have always been close, and she's more of a no-nonsense person. She was thrilled to take on the role. Emma was not happy about this. She expressed her disappointment, but I explained that I needed someone who could handle the responsibility and stay focused. I didn't want to risk any chaos. Emma took it well, or so I thought. She told me she understood and would still support me in whatever way I needed. Now, the wedding day arrives, and everything's going according to plan. I'm a little nervous, but my sister's got everything under control. Emma was invited to be a bridesmaid, and she was there early, helping with decorations and things like that. But as the day went on, she started to act strange. At first, it was just little things. She'd make these comments about how she would have done things differently if she were the maid of honor, or how she thought Sarah wasn't managing things as well as she could be. I brushed it off, thinking it was just nerves or jealousy. Things took a turn when we were getting ready for the ceremony. I had a small bridal suite, and only my bridesmaids and my mom were with me. Emma came in, looking visibly upset. She pulled me aside and started to cry. She told me she felt betrayed and that I was ruining our friendship by not choosing her. I didn't know what to say. I tried to comfort her, but the timing was bad, and I was stressed. I gently told her that I didn't want to fight on my wedding day, and we could talk later. She agreed, but I could tell she was still upset. At this point, I thought the drama was behind us. I went on to have a beautiful ceremony, and everything went smoothly. That is, until the reception. Emma started causing a scene. She was making passive-aggressive comments about how she could have done a better job with the planning, and she started interrupting conversations I was having with other guests. It was clear she was trying to get attention. I noticed that some of the guests were starting to look uncomfortable, and my mom pulled me aside to say that Emma was making a lot of people uneasy. I had enough. I confronted Emma, telling her that this was supposed to be my special day and that she was ruining it. I reminded her that we could talk later, but I needed her to be respectful and stop causing drama. Emma didn't take kindly to that. She accused me of disowning her and said that I was too good for her now. She told me that if she couldn't be the maid of honor, she wasn't going to stay and be part of the wedding at all. I felt horrible, but honestly, I didn't want to let her ruin my entire day. I told her that if she wasn't going to be supportive, she could leave. She got angrier, called me selfish, and stormed off. The rest of the night was fine, but her absence was definitely felt. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because the drama was gone, but sad because of how everything had played out. The next day, Emma texted me and told me she was disappointed in how I handled the situation. She said I overreacted and that I betrayed her by not choosing her as my maid of honor. She also told me that she didn't want to be friends anymore if I didn't apologize for making her feel like crap on the most important day of my life. I've been torn about this whole thing. On one hand, I understand that she was hurt, but on the other hand, I feel like she should have understood my reasoning. It wasn't personal. I just didn't think she was the right person for the role. I've tried to reach out to her to talk it out, but she's refused. She says I don't deserve her and that she's better off without me. AITA for asking her to leave the wedding after she made it about her. I know it was a tough situation, but I felt like I had to choose my happiness and my day over her feelings. Am I being unreasonable here? AITA for calling off my wedding after finding out my fiancé gave his ex-girlfriend a key to our apartment? So, I, 26F, have been with my fiancé, Tom, 28M, for about 3 years. We met through mutual friends at a party and hit it off immediately. He was charming, funny, and I felt a deep connection with him. Over the course of our relationship, I discovered that he's kind, caring, and really supportive of my career. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall, things have been great. We moved in together a year ago, and a few months ago we got engaged. However, recently, something happened that's completely thrown me off, and now I'm questioning everything. About 2 weeks ago, Tom and I were having a conversation about our plans for the wedding. We were going over some of the finer details like guest lists, venues, etc. when we started talking about our living arrangements after the wedding. We currently live in a small apartment, and we had discussed possibly moving into a house after we get married, depending on where our careers take us. At this point, Tom casually mentioned something about his ex-girlfriend, Claire, 29F. I've always known about Claire. They dated in college for a couple of years, but broke up before we met. I've never been overly concerned about their past relationship because, well, it was in the past, and I trusted Tom. I knew she was still in the area, and they were friendly, but Tom always assured me that there were no lingering feelings. Still, I'd be lying if I didn't feel a little weird about how close they were sometimes, especially when he'd mention her in conversations. Anyway, during this discussion about our living situation, Tom casually dropped a bombshell. He had given Claire a key to our apartment. My first reaction was, what? Why? And he explained that it was because Claire had helped him with some stuff around the apartment a while back when I was out of town, and she had asked for a key in case she needed to come by to help him with things in the future. I was stunned. I didn't understand why he didn't mention this sooner, and more importantly, why he thought it was okay to give his ex-girlfriend, who I'd already been uneasy about, access to our shared space. I asked him if Claire still came by often, and he said, not really, just when I need help with something. He assured me that it wasn't a big deal and that he didn't think it was necessary to bring it up, since it had happened a while ago. But to me, this was a huge deal. I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that Tom had been allowing Claire access to our home without telling me. It felt like a betrayal of trust, especially when I had been so open and transparent about my feelings. I told him that I wasn't comfortable with the situation and that I wanted her key back immediately. Tom got defensive. He said I was overreacting and that it wasn't like Claire was coming over all the time or anything. He kept insisting that it was just a practical thing and that I was making a bigger deal out of it than it was. He even mentioned that if I didn't trust him enough to handle this, maybe we weren't ready to get married. That really stung. I felt like he was turning the tables on me, implying that I was the problem because I didn't trust him. It wasn't about trust, though. It was about boundaries and respect. I told him that I didn't want to move forward with the wedding until this was sorted out. I said that I didn't feel comfortable marrying someone who thought it was okay to keep secrets and allow his ex into our home. The argument escalated, and we ended up having a long, difficult conversation about our relationship. Tom told me that he didn't understand why I was so upset, and I explained that it wasn't just about the key. It was about the lack of respect for our relationship and my feelings. I told him that I wanted to feel like a priority in his life, not like I was second to his ex. Eventually, he agreed to take the key back from Claire, but the damage was done. I started questioning everything. How could I trust someone who would make such a questionable decision without consulting me? How could I marry someone who couldn't see why I was so upset about this? I felt disrespected and dismissed, and I started wondering if maybe Tom wasn't the person I thought he was. After a few days of thinking it over, I decided to call off the wedding. I told Tom that I couldn't marry him if I didn't feel like he respected me and our relationship. He was devastated and begged me to reconsider. He said he didn't mean to hurt me and that he loved me. But I just couldn't shake the feeling that this was a fundamental issue that would keep coming up. Now, We're in a really weird spot. We're not speaking much, and he's been trying to get me to change my mind. He says that we can work through this and that it was a mistake, but I'm not sure if I can move past it. I feel like I can't trust him anymore, and I don't know if I can ever feel secure in our relationship again. My friends are split. Some of them think I'm overreacting and that I should just forgive him and move on. Others think I'm doing the right thing by standing up for myself and my boundaries. I'm starting to feel like I made the right decision, but it's hard because I've invested so much time and energy into this relationship. So, AITA for calling off the wedding after finding out my fiancé gave his ex-girlfriend a key to our apartment. AITA for not letting my sister attend my wedding after she sabotaged my engagement party. I, 29F, am getting married to the love of my life, Tom, 31M. We've been together for 5 years, and everything has been perfect. Our wedding is planned for next year, and I've been nothing short of excited about it. However, the road to this point hasn't been as smooth as I had hoped, mostly because of my younger sister, Lily, 25F. Lily and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's incredibly charming when she wants to be, but she also has this knack for making everything about her. I don't know if it's a jealousy thing or if she's just used to getting attention in our family, but it's been a recurring issue for as long as I can remember. I've tried to let it slide, but I'm honestly tired of her behavior, especially now that I'm planning my wedding. To give you some context, the issues between Lily and me came to a head at my engagement party last month. It was a small gathering at a nice restaurant with close friends and family. Tom proposed to me earlier that day, and we thought the engagement party would be a nice way to celebrate with our loved ones. Everything was going well at first. People were congratulating us, and it was such a joyful time. But then, Lily did something that completely threw me off. About an hour into the party, Lily pulled me aside to talk. I figured she wanted to congratulate me privately, but no. She started going on about how she felt like my wedding plans were taking attention away from her. She said I'd been hogging the spotlight for months with all the wedding planning, and it was unfair that I was getting all the attention. She claimed that everyone in our family was treating her like she didn't matter anymore, all because I was getting married. Now, I don't know what kind of logic that is, but I was completely blindsided. I told her that my engagement was a huge milestone for me, and that it was normal to be excited about it. She didn't seem to understand or care about that at all. She told me that if I didn't make it up to her, she would make sure my wedding would be remembered for all the wrong reasons. I tried to brush it off, but things escalated quickly. Later on in the night, as everyone was dancing and enjoying themselves, Lily started telling people that the engagement wasn't real. She told some of our cousins that Tom and I had been fighting, and that the proposal was just a way for him to keep me around because we were on the verge of breaking up. She even hinted to some of my friends that Tom had been pressuring me into this whole wedding thing, even though none of that was true. She didn't stop there. She took things to social media, posting cryptic messages about fake love and how people don't always get what they deserve. The worst part? Some of our family members actually started asking me if what Lily was saying was true. I had to spend the rest of the night defending myself, explaining over and over that none of it was true and that my sister was just acting out. It was mortifying. After the party, I told Lily that she had crossed a line and that I didn't want to have any more conversations about her insecurities during what was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life. She didn't take it well and accused me of being selfish for not caring about her feelings. I was furious at that point, but I still tried to be understanding. I suggested she see a therapist if she was struggling with these emotions, but she refused and kept blaming me for not supporting her. In the days following the party, things only got worse. Lily refused to apologize, and the entire family was divided. Some sided with her, saying that I was being too hard on her and should have been more understanding of her feelings. Others said that I was totally justified in being upset. Tom, on the other hand, was livid. He told me that he didn't want Lily at our wedding after everything that happened. At first, I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to make a permanent decision out of anger, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my sister's actions were completely unacceptable. I've always tried to be there for her, but she continues to treat me like I'm the villain in her story. I spent weeks debating what to do. Should I just let her come to the wedding to avoid further family drama? Should I ask her to apologize first? Or should I finally stand my ground and cut her out of the wedding completely? In the end, I made the decision to tell her that she was no longer invited to my wedding unless she took responsibility for her actions and apologized for sabotaging the engagement party. She wasn't happy, and the response I got was one of anger and resentment. She said I was being petty and that I was ruining our relationship over a stupid party. Our parents are furious with me, and they're trying to convince me to let it go and invite her anyway. They say that I'm being too hard on her and that this will tear our family apart. But I feel like I've already tried everything to be understanding, and I'm done enabling her behavior. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister attend my wedding after what she did at my engagement party. Should I be more forgiving, or am I justified in keeping her out? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to guilt me into letting her use my dress as her something borrowed. I, 28F, have a sister, Emma, 26F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, I was always the more responsible one. Emma was more rebellious, always getting into trouble, and I was often the one to pick up the pieces when things went wrong. Our parents have always favored her, and it's honestly left me feeling somewhat resentful over the years. I've never really held a grudge about it, but it's been hard to ignore how much they constantly compare us and act like Emma can do no wrong. Fast forward to a few months ago when Emma got engaged. I was happy for her, but it's been a roller coaster. She's always been more of a do whatever feels good in the moment type, while I'm someone who likes to plan things out. I'm also not really big on big events like weddings, so I wasn't too excited about being involved in the planning. However, I was still going to support her. She's my sister, after all. About 2 months ago, Emma told me that she had a vision for her wedding dress and wanted to use my dress as part of it. I was shocked. The dress in question was a designer piece that I saved up for years to buy. It's a classic, timeless piece that I've only worn a handful of times, and I take really good care of it. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with the idea of her borrowing it, but she insisted, saying it would mean so much to her to wear it, as it would be her something borrowed. I don't know what made her think I would just give in to this, but I firmly said no. I explained that I wasn't comfortable with her wearing it, especially considering how much I cherish it. I tried to be as polite as possible, but she didn't take it well. Emma was hurt and said I was being selfish, that it was just a dress, and I should let her have it since it's so important to her wedding day. The situation escalated quickly from there. She started accusing me of always making everything about me and being difficult. She even told me that I was ruining her special day by not allowing her to use the dress. The more I tried to explain my reasons, the more she turned it into a personal attack on my character. She said that if I loved her, I would make this small sacrifice for her, but I couldn't get myself to agree. I was starting to get really frustrated and hurt by the fact that she couldn't respect my boundaries. I told her that it was a lot to ask of me, and I felt like she was trying to manipulate me into doing something I didn't want to do by making me feel guilty. It's not like I was trying to stop her from having a nice wedding. I just didn't want her wearing my dress, which, to me, felt more personal than just a piece of clothing. The fallout from this conversation was dramatic. Emma, with the help of our parents, started to guilt-trip me more and more. Our mom called me in tears, telling me I was being unreasonable and that I was going to ruin our family dynamics by refusing to be supportive. She said that I should be honored that Emma wanted to wear something of mine, especially since I'm the one who's always been so distant. Our dad didn't say much, but I could tell he was on Emma's side. I've always felt like I've been put on the back burner, but this was the breaking point. I told them that I wasn't going to be guilted into letting Emma use the dress, but I would still attend the wedding, even if I wasn't happy with how they were all treating me. Emma refused to talk to me after that and stopped responding to my texts. Our relationship, which had already been strained, got even worse. A couple of weeks later, I got a message from Emma saying that she couldn't have a wedding without her sister by her side and that she was really hurt by how I was treating her. She demanded that I either give her the dress or just let it go and attend her wedding without being so dramatic about it. I told her that I wasn't going to change my mind, and if she couldn't understand that, then maybe I shouldn't attend her wedding at all. She didn't respond, but our parents again tried to mediate, claiming that it was just a wedding and I was being too rigid. I started feeling really alienated and unsupported, especially because they were treating Emma's feelings like they mattered more than my own. I eventually made the decision to tell them I wasn't going to go to the wedding if it meant continuing to endure this pressure. Now, I'm feeling conflicted. I know that weddings are a big deal, but I also feel like my sister has crossed a line by trying to manipulate me into letting her have my dress. I've tried to be understanding, but at what point do I stop letting her walk all over me? She's the one who made this an issue, not me. My parents have been acting like I'm the one who's wrong, and I'm starting to doubt myself. I know I'm being firm on my boundaries, but I also don't want to lose my sister over something that seems so trivial. Still, I don't think it's fair for her to pressure me like this. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to guilt me into letting her use my dress as her something borrowed. AITA for not allowing my sister to attend my wedding after she made a scene at my engagement party. So, a little background. I, 27F, have a sister, Clara, 29F, who I've always had a rocky relationship with. Growing up, she was the golden child, straight A student, always in the spotlight, always praised by our parents. I was the troublemaker by comparison. I wasn't a bad kid or anything, just didn't fit into the mold they had for me. I was more creative, more rebellious, and not as focused on academics. As a result, Clara and I have never really been close, but we've always been cordial enough for family gatherings. Fast forward to a few months ago when I got engaged to my now fiancé, James, 32M. I was ecstatic and immediately started planning the wedding. I've always dreamed of having a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. I wasn't going for a huge wedding or anything extravagant, but I wanted it to be something meaningful. My engagement party came around, and everything was going smoothly at first. We had it at a nice restaurant, invited our closest friends and family, and I was feeling on top of the world. My sister Clara was there, and she seemed fine at first, normal even. That was until she made an offhand comment about how weird it was that I was marrying someone so much older than me. I laughed it off at first, assuming it was just Clara being her usual, slightly judgmental self. But as the night went on, her comments started to get more pointed. Clara began asking me a lot of personal questions about James, like whether he was financially stable, as if that was anyone's business, and how we planned on handling the age gap. She made a few comments about how James would probably get tired of me, and how I was rushing into things. I told her I didn't appreciate her negativity, and she got defensive, saying I was being too sensitive. Then came the real kicker. She started to make a scene, loudly questioning why I was settling for someone like James when I could have anyone I wanted. I was humiliated, and so was James, who had been sitting there, quiet and visibly uncomfortable. At that point, I told Clara that I didn't want to hear any more of her remarks, and that if she couldn't be happy for me, she should leave. She left in a huff, and the rest of the night was pretty tense. After the engagement party, I decided to take some time to process everything. I called Clara the next day to talk, and she acted like nothing had happened. She didn't apologize at all. She just said I was overreacting and that I needed to chill out because it was just a joke. I told her that what she said wasn't funny, and it hurt me. I asked if she could respect my relationship and be supportive, and she basically said I should get over it. She ended the conversation by saying, "I don't think you're being fair to me." Since then, there's been little communication between us. I sent her a text a few weeks ago saying that I wanted her to attend my wedding, but that she needed to apologize first. I didn't want her to come unless she took responsibility for what happened at the engagement party. She never responded to that message. Now, I've decided that if Clara is going to continue with her attitude and not even make an effort to apologize, I don't want her at my wedding. I told our parents about this, and they were not happy. My mom said I was being too harsh, and that it was just a misunderstanding. My dad has been more supportive, but he hasn't exactly said much beyond that. They think I should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. Here's where I might be the asshole. I'm really not sure if I'm doing the right thing by excluding her from the wedding. I've always felt like she was dismissive of me and my life choices, and this was the final straw. On the other hand, I do know that family dynamics are complicated, and I don't want to alienate her for good. But at the same time, I don't think I should have to tolerate her disrespect, especially when it comes to something as important as my wedding day. So, AITA for telling my sister she can't come to my wedding after she made a scene at my engagement party. AITA for not letting my sister's fiancé move in with me after their apartment flooded. So, a bit of background. I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I've been living alone for the past 2 years in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent in a fairly expensive city. My younger sister, Lily, 26, and her fiancé, Tom, 28, have been living together in a small 1-bedroom apartment for the past year. They've been engaged for about 6 months and have been together for 4 years. They're both great people, but honestly, their living situation has always been a bit of strain. About 2 weeks ago, their apartment flooded due to a burst pipe. The damage was pretty significant. Flooded floors, damaged furniture, and a lot of their personal belongings were destroyed. They contacted their insurance and the apartment complex, but the repairs were going to take several months to complete. Since their lease was up anyway, they were given the option to break it early, and they decided to start looking for a new place. At first, they thought they would stay with my parents, who live an hour away, but my mom has been having some health issues recently, and she just wasn't up for the extra stress of hosting them. My sister called me a couple of days after the flood and asked if she and Tom could stay with me temporarily while they find a new place. I've always had a good relationship with them, but I'm not really comfortable with the idea of roommates. I've been living alone for a while, and I enjoy the peace and quiet. I told her I wasn't sure, but I'd think about it. I don't want to come off as a jerk, but I was really hesitant. I've had roommates in the past, and while most were fine, I've also had some not-so-great experiences. Plus, my apartment is small, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen/living room combo. There's not a lot of extra space, and I really value my privacy. I explained all this to Lily and told her that I wasn't sure I could handle having 2 people in such a small space. She didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and that it was family, and I should be more supportive. She also mentioned that they would be willing to pay rent and help out with groceries and bills. I appreciated the offer, but the idea of having them there for potentially months just felt like too much. After I told her I wasn't comfortable with it, Lily got really upset and started texting me about how I was disappointing her. She said it wasn't like they were asking for much, and this is what family is for. She also mentioned how much I've benefited from the help of other people in the past, and it was time for me to return the favor. She even brought up how she let me stay at her place for a few weeks when I was going through a tough breakup a few years ago, and how I'd promised to be there for her when she needed me. I felt bad, but I still didn't think I could do it. I know I sound like a terrible person for even thinking this, but I also felt a little resentful about the guilt trip. I did offer them a compromise. I said they could stay with me for a week or 2 while they figure things out, but I couldn't handle them living here long term. I even suggested they look into booking a short-term rental or staying in Airbnb, since I thought that might be more comfortable for everyone. Lily said that wasn't feasible because of the costs, but it felt like they were kind of putting me in a situation where I had to choose between being a good sister and my own peace of mind. Now it's been a week, and things are still tense between us. Lily keeps texting me asking if I've reconsidered, and I'm starting to feel guilty. I know I could probably have been more understanding, but I don't want to compromise my own living situation for the sake of them needing somewhere to stay. I've had my own share of struggles, and I really value the space and routine I've built for myself. I know she's frustrated and upset, but I also feel like I'm being a little more rational than she's giving me credit for. I don't want to let this destroy our relationship, but I also don't want to be manipulated into doing something that would make me uncomfortable for an extended period. So, AITA for not letting my sister and her fiancé move in with me? AITA for not letting my fiancé invite his ex to our wedding? I, 27F, am getting married in a few months to my fiancé, Mike, 29M. We've been together for 4 years, and I love him deeply. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall, we have a strong relationship. The issue I'm dealing with now started when Mike mentioned that he wanted to invite his ex-girlfriend, Claire, to our wedding. Let me give a little background. Mike and Claire were together for about 3 years before they broke up. They ended on good terms and have remained friends since. I've always been a little uneasy about their friendship because I've heard stories about how close they were during their relationship. Mike has never given me any reason to doubt his loyalty, but I still can't help feeling uncomfortable whenever Claire is around. She's a very nice person, but I've always felt like there's some kind of lingering tension between them, even if it's unspoken. A few weeks ago, Mike casually brought up that he'd been talking to Claire and thought it would be a good idea to invite her to our wedding. He said that she had always been a huge part of his life and that she was still a good friend, so he didn't see a reason not to invite her. I was stunned. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't help asking why he felt it was necessary. He said that it would be awkward not to invite her, especially considering they've been friends for so long. I told him that I wasn't comfortable with that. I explained that while I respected their friendship, inviting an ex to our wedding didn't sit well with me. I even said that it felt disrespectful to our relationship, especially since I know that their past is still part of their history, and there's a chance it could create unnecessary tension or drama at the wedding. Mike got upset, telling me that I was being unreasonable and insecure. He said that his friendship with Claire had nothing to do with our relationship and that he wanted her to be there to celebrate this milestone with us. I tried to explain that it wasn't about him having friends, but about the symbolism of a wedding. Weddings are emotional and intimate, and having an ex there might feel weird for me and possibly even for our families. I also pointed out that I wouldn't want to be in the position where I felt like I had to worry about how their interactions might be perceived. Mike didn't understand my concerns and accused me of being jealous. He argued that I was overreacting and that Claire was just a friend now. I felt like I was at a standstill with him. I tried to reason with him, suggesting that maybe we could meet with Claire in a less formal setting before the wedding and spend time together as a group to see if I could warm up to the idea of her being around. But Mike was firm in his belief that I was being unfair and that his ex should be invited. At this point, I started questioning whether I was being too rigid or controlling. I tried to be supportive of Mike's friendships, even though I don't always feel completely comfortable with them. For example, he's still close friends with several of his exes, and while I don't always love it, I've tried to trust him. But this situation feels different. It's our wedding day, and I can't shake the feeling that it's inappropriate for his ex to be there, especially since I don't know how I'd feel with her present on such an important occasion. I've been thinking about this nonstop and have talked to a few of my friends about it. Most of them think I'm being reasonable. They agree that it would be awkward to invite an ex to such an intimate and significant event, but one of my friends, Emily, said that I was overthinking it and that I needed to trust Mike more. She said that weddings are about celebrating love, and it shouldn't matter who's there as long as everyone respects the couple. However, the other friends I spoke to were on my side, saying they would feel uncomfortable in my position too. After a long conversation, Mike suggested we compromise by inviting Claire, but only for the ceremony part of the day, not the reception. He said that way, she could be a part of the wedding without staying for the party. I'm still not thrilled about this idea. It doesn't feel like a compromise to me. It just feels like he's still pushing for something that doesn't sit well with me. I've told him that I don't want to invite her at all, but he keeps pushing back, saying that it's important to him and that I'm making it about me instead of considering his feelings. I know I could just give in and invite her, but I really feel like that would be a huge compromise on my boundaries, and I don't want to start our marriage off by feeling like I'm not allowed to voice my discomfort. At the same time, I don't want to cause tension between Mike and me, especially over something that's supposed to be a happy event. Now, I'm feeling stuck. I know Mike is upset that I'm not giving in, but I also think my feelings are valid. I don't want to start our marriage feeling disrespected. So, AITA for refusing to let Mike invite his ex to our wedding? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. So, this is a bit of a long story, but I'm honestly really torn and I need some outside perspectives. I, 28F, have a sister, 30F. Let's call her Kate. We've always had a somewhat strained relationship, but in the last few years, it's gotten better. We've started hanging out more, and I thought we were actually getting closer. A few months ago, Kate announced that she was getting married to her fiancé, Brian. I was happy for her, although I knew she was having a fairly large wedding, about 200 people. I assumed that I'd be in the bridal party because that's pretty typical for us. Kate and I have had some ups and downs, but I thought we were on a good path. A couple of weeks after the engagement announcement, Kate asked me to be a bridesmaid. It wasn't anything I was super excited about because, like I said, our relationship has been a bit rocky in the past, but I agreed, figuring this was a good way to show her I was there for her. Then came the bombshell. Kate told me that the wedding guest list was getting out of hand, and she needed to make some cuts to fit within budget. Fair enough, I thought. Weddings are expensive. However, she then told me that I couldn't bring my boyfriend, Matt, to the wedding. She said it was a family-only event, and she didn't want any extra drama on the day. Matt and I have been together for almost 2 years, and while we're not married, we live together and are a pretty solid couple. I was taken aback because I didn't think bringing a long-term partner to a wedding would be an issue. I also know that Kate isn't particularly close to anyone in my family, so it felt a bit like a personal dig. I explained to Kate that I didn't feel comfortable going to the wedding alone, especially since I didn't know most of the people attending. I told her that I wanted to support her on her big day, but it was important to me to have Matt there because he's such a big part of my life. She was firm in her stance and said that she would rather not have to deal with the drama of people questioning why my boyfriend was there. I was pretty upset by this because I've always tried to be there for Kate, even if she's never been the best at being there for me. I agreed to her request to attend without Matt, but I made it clear that if I was going to make this sacrifice, I wouldn't be helping financially with the wedding. Now, here's where I think I may have messed up. I know Kate and Brian have been struggling with wedding costs, and she's been asking family members to contribute. I've always been open about being willing to help with things like decorations or other small aspects of the wedding, but I made it clear that I wasn't willing to contribute any money to the wedding if Matt couldn't be there. Kate was really upset when I told her this. She said that I was being selfish and that this was supposed to be her big day, and I should be happy to support her regardless of whether Matt was invited or not. She said that my decision to pull financial support was petty and that I should grow up and stop making everything about me. I can understand that her wedding is a big deal, but at the same time, I feel like it was a huge ask for me to come alone, especially when she knows how close Matt and I are. I feel like I'm caught between supporting my sister and sticking up for myself and my relationship. I don't want to cause drama, but I also don't want to feel like I'm being treated like a second-class family member. The whole thing has left me feeling pretty torn and honestly kind of hurt. I've spoken to a couple of other family members, and some are on my side, saying I should stand up for myself and that Kate is being unreasonable, while others think I should just let it go and support her, even if I'm uncomfortable with her decision. I've been wondering if I'm being too stubborn or if Kate is the one being unreasonable. Am I the asshole here for not helping her financially after she told me I couldn't bring Matt? AITA for calling off my wedding after I found out my fiancé was hiding a secret from me? Okay, so this is a long one. I'm 29 and my fiancé, Jake, is 31. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and we're in the final stages of planning our wedding, which was supposed to happen in about 2 months. We've been living together for a little over a year, and things have been pretty good. I mean, no relationship is perfect, but we didn't have any serious issues. At least, I thought we didn't. To give a little more context, Jake and I met through mutual friends and started dating pretty quickly. I felt like we were in sync on most things, including big life decisions. We talked about marriage early on, and when he proposed last year, it felt like the natural next step. We had a few minor disagreements, but nothing that felt insurmountable. Or so I thought. A few weeks ago, I stumbled across something that completely threw me for a loop. I found out that Jake has been hiding a huge secret from me for our entire relationship. And by hiding, I mean he kept it from me on purpose. So, here's what happened. We had some friends over to our place a few weekends ago. One of the guys, Tom, brought his girlfriend, Emma, who I didn't know very well. At some point during the evening, the conversation turned to relationship stuff, as it often does when you're with a group of people. Emma mentioned how she and Tom had been living in the same city for a few years, but they just moved to a new place not too far from here. I was happy for them, and we all started talking about how we were handling our own living situations. That's when Emma mentioned that she had lived with Jake before. In fact, they lived together for a year before we met. Now, I've always known Jake had a few exes, but this was news to me. He had never mentioned that he and Emma had lived together. When I asked him about it later that night, he was extremely defensive. He didn't even give me a straight answer at first. It was like pulling teeth to get him to admit that it was true. Finally, he said something like, "It wasn't a big deal, we were just roommates." But here's the thing, that didn't make any sense. Jake and I had been talking about past relationships before. He told me about a couple of his exes, but he'd never mentioned Emma. In fact, when we first got together, he talked about his past in a way that made it sound like he hadn't been in a serious relationship for years. I had always assumed the serious ex he mentioned was someone else. But apparently, Emma was the one he was really serious with before me. Naturally, I pressed him further, and it came out that they were not just roommates like he'd claimed. They had been in a full-blown relationship for over a year, and it ended badly. He even admitted they broke up because he wasn't ready for a serious relationship, and that things ended on bad terms. I felt blindsided. If I had known they were that close, I would have wanted to hear about it sooner. And it wasn't just about the relationship with Emma. It was the fact that Jake had been hiding it for so long. Why hadn't he told me about her? Why was it something he felt needed to be kept secret? It felt like he had intentionally kept this piece of his past hidden, and I felt like I was kept in the dark about something important. The next day, I sat Jake down to talk. He admitted that he had kept the relationship with Emma a secret because he didn't want to make things complicated and because it was in the past, and he didn't think it mattered. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper going on. We argued for hours. I told him that this wasn't just about Emma. It was about trust. If he could hide something this big from me, what else was he hiding? Was there more he hadn't told me about his past? Jake tried to explain that he didn't think it was a big deal, and he never intended to hurt me. He said he had his reasons for not bringing it up, and that he never thought I'd find out through some random conversation with a friend. But that's exactly what happened. I found out in the most casual way possible, and that stung. I started doubting everything about our relationship. I asked myself, if Jake could hide something this significant, what else had he been keeping from me? What if this was just the tip of the iceberg? Could I trust him? Could I marry someone who had lied to me about something this important? In the end, I called off the wedding. I told Jake I needed time to think and that I couldn't move forward with a marriage under these circumstances. I told him I wasn't angry about the relationship with Emma. I was angry about the fact that he had kept it a secret for so long. I felt like I was the last to know, and that broke my trust in him. Jake begged me to reconsider, saying he didn't want to lose me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. So now I'm left with this huge decision. Did I overreact? Is this just something that I should have let go of? Or did Jake's secret reveal something deeper about our relationship that I can't ignore? I'm heartbroken, but I don't know if I can get past this. I don't know if I can marry someone who's lied to me, even if it was about something from their past. AITA for calling off the wedding over this? AITA for refusing to give up my seat at the family dinner table to my brother's girlfriend? So, a little backstory. I, 28F, come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 5 siblings, and our family gatherings are a huge deal. My parents, both in their late 50s, host these dinners every Sunday evening, and they've always made a point of keeping the tradition alive. There's a designated seat at the dinner table for each family member, and it's kind of a long-standing thing. We don't get together as often as we used to now that we're all adults and scattered around the country, but we make it work when we can. This past Sunday was one of those gatherings, and my brother, 25M, who's been dating his girlfriend, Lily, 24F, for about 6 months, was the first one to arrive. Everyone was kind of catching up, and Lily, who had come along this time, was introduced to the rest of us. We all got along just fine. She seemed nice, easy to talk to, and she was very polite, but there was something about her that just rubbed me the wrong way from the start. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but she just didn't seem to fit the vibe of our family. She was a bit distant, which I get since she was meeting everyone, but she was also a little detached, almost like she was trying too hard to be liked. The dinner table setup is one of those things that's never been questioned. My dad always sits at the head of the table, my mom on the right, and the rest of us kind of fill in based on the order we're seated. As it's always been, I sit to my dad's left, with my siblings taking up the rest of the table. Since there's only one seat on either side of my parents, it's kind of a big deal when someone new comes over. Everyone usually respects that the order stays intact, and the new person gets a seat at the other end of the table if there's one available. So when Lily came in, I assumed she'd sit at the far end or wherever there was a free spot. But my brother very casually turned to me and said, "Hey, Lily's been sitting next to me at her family's dinners, and she's kind of used to being by me. Do you mind swapping spots with her?" Now, I know my brother well enough to know he didn't mean any harm. He's a good guy, and I'm sure he wasn't trying to be disrespectful. But this was my seat. It was the spot I've sat in since I was a kid, and I've never had anyone ask me to move before. I don't have a problem with Lily, at least not at that moment, but I've always taken my seat at the table as part of the unspoken rules of our family dynamic. And to be honest, I wasn't comfortable just giving it up without a good reason. So I said no. I told my brother that I'd rather not swap seats and that Lily could sit at the other end of the table, where there was plenty of room. My brother seemed taken aback, like he wasn't expecting me to refuse. He tried to argue a little, saying it would make Lily feel more comfortable if she was closer to him, but I stuck to my decision. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I wasn't about to let some new relationship change the entire seating arrangement that had worked for years. The rest of the family seemed to side with me. My parents didn't say anything directly, but my mom gave me a look that seemed to say she was on my side. My younger siblings didn't seem to care that much about the seating situation, but they did notice the tension. Lily, however, was visibly uncomfortable and looked a little hurt by my refusal. She didn't say anything at the time, but I could tell she didn't appreciate it. The dinner itself went off without a hitch, but afterward, Lily didn't stick around as long as everyone else. She made a quick exit, saying she was tired and needed to get going. My brother was a little quieter than usual after that, and I could tell he was upset. As soon as we all started cleaning up, he pulled me aside and told me I'd ruined the vibe of the evening by refusing to let Lily sit next to him. He said I could have made a simple compromise and it wouldn't have been a big deal, but instead, I made her feel unwelcome. He said he felt like I was treating her differently because she was new and that it wasn't fair to her. I didn't think it was that serious, but my brother was clearly really frustrated with me. My parents didn't get involved, but after a few days, my mom sent me a text asking if I could be a little more understanding with Lily. She said she could tell Lily was feeling a little out of place and that I shouldn't have let a small thing like a seat at the table become an issue. My dad didn't comment on it, but I could tell he wasn't thrilled with the way things went either. Now, I'm starting to wonder if I really overreacted. I understand that my brother probably wants to make Lily feel comfortable, but I didn't think my seat at the table was the place to start making changes. I don't mind getting along with her, but it felt like something that should have been addressed more politely instead of just assuming I would give up my seat. So, AITA for refusing to swap seats with my brother's girlfriend? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me? I, 28F, have a sister, Laura, 32F, who is getting married in a couple of months. Our relationship has always been a bit rocky, but it's never been anything out of the ordinary, just the usual sibling tension, you know? I'm closer with our younger brother, Tom, 24M, but I've always tried to maintain a civil relationship with Laura. When Laura got engaged a year ago, she immediately started planning her wedding. At first, I was excited for her. I knew she had dreamed about her wedding day for years, so I offered to help out with whatever she needed. I asked her if she had a wedding planner, and when she said no, I volunteered to help with organizing the details like finding vendors and keeping track of the budget. I'm a detail-oriented person and figured it would be fun to contribute. We started talking about her vision for the wedding. She wanted it to be a big, extravagant affair with about 300 guests, a 5-course meal, a string quartet, and a massive venue. This wasn't an issue for me at first, even though I knew it would get expensive. I assumed she'd have a large budget, especially considering her fiancé's family is extremely wealthy. I even offered to help financially if things got tight. Well, things did get tight. Laura and her fiancé had budgeted poorly, and the costs started piling up fast. She asked me if I could contribute $10,000 to the wedding. I wasn't thrilled with the request, especially since I was already doing a lot of the planning and logistical work for free, but I agreed because it was important to her. I don't make that kind of money normally, but I saved up a bit over the years and thought this would be a one-time thing. A few months went by, and as the wedding got closer, the stress started to take a toll on both of us. Laura seemed more distant, and when I asked if she needed anything, she often snapped at me. I understood she was stressed, but the tension started to grow. Then, about 3 weeks ago, she sent me a text saying, I need to talk to you. Can you come by? When I went over to her apartment, she seemed upset but wouldn't tell me what was going on at first. After a lot of prompting, she said she had some bad news. Apparently, she had decided to change the guest list and had removed a few people, including me, from it. I was taken aback, especially considering I've been helping with so much. When I asked why, she said she didn't feel I was being supportive enough and that I was too critical of her wedding plans. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help, but she said that it wasn't the kind of help she wanted. I wasn't giving her the yes energy she needed, and instead, I was focusing too much on the details and not enough on the fun of the day. She also accused me of stealing the planning process from her and making it all about my ideas. I was shocked. The thought that she would remove me from the wedding list felt like a slap in the face, especially after everything I'd done. I told her I felt betrayed, and she said that if I couldn't understand her vision for the day, then maybe it was best if I wasn't there. She told me she would understand if I didn't want to contribute financially anymore. I was furious. The audacity of her to disinvite me after I had been so involved in everything was beyond me. But what made it worse was that she still expected me to pay the $10,000 I had promised for the wedding. She said it wasn't about my presence, but that I'd already committed to helping, and now it would cause a lot of stress for her if I backed out. Her fiancé even called me and left a voicemail saying that it would be irresponsible of me to not follow through on my promise to help. I immediately called my brother, Tom, and told him what happened. He was just as shocked as I was. He told me I should just pull out of the wedding entirely, both financially and emotionally, and that I shouldn't let her manipulate me into paying for something when she had just kicked me to the curb. Tom said that this was a clear sign of how toxic my sister's behavior had gotten and that I shouldn't let her guilt trip me. After thinking it over, I decided to stand my ground. I texted Laura back and told her that I wouldn't be attending the wedding or paying any further money. I told her I felt disrespected and that she needed to take accountability for how she had treated me. I told her that if she wanted me to be part of her life, she needed to start acting like a sister, not a bridezilla. Laura immediately called me and screamed at me for betraying her. She said that by backing out, I was ruining her big day, and she'd never forgive me for it. Her fiancé called me as well, basically telling me that my actions were selfish and immature. I told them both I was done and hung up. Since then, Laura has been posting photos of the wedding preparations all over social media, and every single one seems to be a passive-aggressive shot at me. She keeps posting about how important it is to have people around you who truly support you. I know this is directed at me, and it feels like a slap in the face. Now, our family is divided. Our parents are upset with me because they think I should just suck it up and pay the money to keep the peace. They say I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Tom, on the other hand, is firmly on my side, and even though he hasn't spoken to Laura, he's told her she's out of line. I'm torn. On one hand, I don't want to be the person who ruins her wedding, but on the other hand, I feel like I've been used and manipulated for too long. I know Laura's the bride and all, but does that mean she gets to treat me however she wants and expect me to just keep paying for everything? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me? AITA for not letting my sister stay with me after a breakup? I, 28F, live alone in a small apartment in a city about an hour away from where my family lives. My sister, 26F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. We've never been as close as I am with my other siblings. Growing up, she was always the golden child, while I was the responsible, somewhat rebellious one who always got the bad rap. My parents have always praised her for her achievements, and while I don't mind her success, there's been a lot of tension between us over the years. For context, my sister has always had a bit of a habit of making impulsive decisions. She's had a couple of long-term relationships that ended in a dramatic, over-the-top fashion. She often comes to me for advice, but usually does the opposite of what I suggest, and then calls me when things go wrong. It's not that I don't care, but over time, I've grown tired of being her sounding board for every crisis. About a week ago, my sister called me crying, saying her boyfriend of 2 years broke up with her. It sounded like it was pretty messy. She said he was cheating and that she couldn't believe how heartless he was. I listened to her vent for a while, But honestly, I didn't want to get involved too much because I knew she'd eventually get back together with him or move on with someone else after a couple of weeks, just like she always does. Here's where the issue comes in. She asked if she could stay with me for a while because she needed to get away from everything and clear her head. She told me she didn't want to be around our parents because they just give her unsolicited advice about getting over the breakup and moving on with her life. She seemed pretty desperate, so I tried to be understanding at first. But I have to be honest, my first instinct was to say no. I've had a lot of people stay with me before, and it's never really been a pleasant experience. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment, and the thought of having someone stay with me for an indefinite period of time stresses me out. I value my space and need alone time to recharge, especially after long weeks at work. I also knew that my sister had a tendency to overstay her welcome when she visited before, and I wasn't sure if I could handle it this time around. So I told her no. I told her I didn't have the room and that it wouldn't be fair to either of us. I suggested she stay with a couple of our mutual friends who had larger places or go to our parents' house, which she adamantly rejected. She said she didn't want to be around them because they just make her feel worse. At this point, she was getting pretty upset with me. She said I was being selfish and that it was family and I should be there for her. She accused me of not caring about her and only thinking about myself. I tried to explain that it wasn't that I didn't care, but I had my own boundaries, and living with someone in my space for an indefinite period of time wasn't something I was comfortable with. The conversation ended with her saying something along the lines of, "I knew you wouldn't help me when I needed it. I guess I'll figure it out without you." I felt guilty, but also a little annoyed. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was only reaching out to me because I was the easiest person to manipulate. After all, she knew I would feel bad, saying no, and would be guilt-tripped into giving in. But I didn't want to be a pushover this time. Since then, she's been distant. She hasn't really spoken to me much, and I've heard from our parents that she's been staying at a friend's place for the time being. I've gotten some messages from her where she's expressed being hurt and disappointed, but she hasn't outright said that she's angry at me. Now I'm questioning whether I was too harsh. I don't know if I should have put my own discomfort aside to help her, even though I know how she is when she's in one of her emotional states. I feel like I could have made an exception just this once, but at the same time, I don't want to enable her behavior of relying on others every time something goes wrong in her life. So, AITA for not letting my sister stay with me after a breakup. Could I have handled this differently? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she demanded I fix my appearance for her special day. I'm 29, and my sister, Lila, is getting married in 6 months. Lila is 26, and we've always had a somewhat strained relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, always getting praise for being perfect, while I was the wild child with a rebellious streak. I won't pretend I didn't resent it sometimes, but I've been mostly independent as an adult, and we've had an understanding as of late. We're not super close, but we get along okay. A few months ago, Lila approached me about her wedding. She told me I was going to be one of her bridesmaids and that I needed to start getting serious about my appearance for the big day. Now, I'm not someone who obsesses over my looks. I'm a bit on the heavier side, and I've always been pretty comfortable with it. I wear clothes I feel good in, do my hair however I want, and wear minimal makeup. But Lila told me that she wanted all of her bridesmaids to look their best, and that if I didn't make some changes, it might reflect poorly on her. She then suggested that I lose weight, change my hairstyle, and wear more makeup for the wedding. I didn't think much of it at first and kind of brushed it off, but she didn't drop it. She kept bringing it up in every conversation, like it was the most important thing about her wedding, me fixing myself to look good for her. It was getting more and more uncomfortable, and it felt less like a request and more like an ultimatum. She told me that if I didn't make these changes, it would ruin the aesthetic of her wedding, and she'd rather have someone else in my place. At first, I thought she was joking, but after a couple more conversations, I realized she wasn't. She was dead serious. I started getting frustrated. I've always supported my sister in her other life choices. I've always been there for her, even when she's made some questionable decisions, but this was crossing a line. The more she pushed for me to change, the more I dug my heels in. Why should I have to change who I am to fit into her vision for her wedding? I'm her sister, not one of her perfectly curated friends. I had a conversation with her about how I felt. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with her asking me to change my appearance, especially considering that I've always been comfortable in my skin. She responded by saying I was being selfish and too sensitive, and that it was her wedding day, and she just wanted everything to be perfect. She even said that if I refused to lose weight and make myself look presentable, she would have no choice but to ask me to step down from being a bridesmaid. At that point, I lost it. I told her that I was done with her controlling attitude and that I didn't care if she asked me to leave the bridal party. I wasn't going to change who I was for her wedding, and frankly, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go anymore. I was hurt by the way she was treating me. It felt like she didn't love me for who I was. I felt like a prop in her vision of the perfect wedding, and I wasn't willing to be a part of that. I didn't hear from her for a few days after our conversation. When I did, she texted me saying that if I didn't apologize for being rude and agreeing to fix myself, I wouldn't be invited to her wedding at all. I told her I wasn't going to apologize because I didn't do anything wrong. She then made a public post on social media about how heartbroken she was that her sister couldn't support her on her special day. That post got a lot of attention, and a lot of our family and mutual friends reached out to me to ask what happened. I explained my side of the story, but now people are split. Some of our relatives are calling me selfish and jealous, and others think Lila is being unreasonable and obsessive. The thing is, I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here. I understand that weddings are a big deal, and I understand that she wants everything to look perfect. But she's asking me to change fundamental parts of myself that I'm not willing to compromise on. She wants me to lose weight and wear makeup and change my hair because she thinks it will make her wedding more aesthetic, but I've never been that kind of person. She could have just accepted me for who I am. But instead, it's turned into this giant battle where she's saying I'm being selfish for wanting to be myself. Now, I'm starting to wonder if I've gone too far. I know weddings bring out a lot of emotions, and maybe I'm being too harsh in my response. But I also feel like this isn't about me being a good sister. It's about me being a prop for her to show off at her wedding. Am I being unreasonable? Should I have just sucked it up and done what she asked? Or is she in the wrong for expecting me to change who I am for the sake of her perfect day? AITA for refusing to change my appearance for my sister's wedding and not paying for her wedding if she continues to ask me to do so? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law bring her kids to my wedding after she broke my trust? I, 28F, am getting married in a few months to my fiancé, Erin, 30M, and we've been planning this wedding for about a year now. It's going to be a fairly large event with around 150 guests. We have been going back and forth with the guest list, trying to make sure everything is perfect and that we're not inviting people who might create unnecessary drama or tension. One of the main sources of tension has been my sister-in-law, Danielle, 34F. Danielle has always been a bit dramatic, to say the least. She's a single mother with 2 kids, Jake, 8, and Emily, 5. Over the years, I've tried my best to have a good relationship with her. I've attended every family event, helped her out with babysitting when she needed a break, and even taken the kids out for a few Annie days, trying to build some sort of bond with them. But a few months ago, things started to change. I caught Danielle in a lie. I won't go into the whole backstory, but long story short, she had been telling my husband's family that I had said some pretty awful things about them behind their backs, which I absolutely did not. When I confronted her about it, she denied it at first, but then admitted she had made it up because she wasn't happy with how close Erin and I were becoming. It didn't make sense to me, but she apologized, and I thought that would be the end of it. I really tried to let it go and move on, but things fell off ever since. Now, back to the wedding planning. My fiancé and I decided early on that we didn't want kids at the wedding. It's not that we don't love kids, but we both wanted to keep things focused on our adult guests and create an environment where everyone could relax and enjoy themselves without worrying about kids running around. We also don't have a huge budget, and kids usually mean more food, more supervision, more everything. So we made a firm decision to make it an adults-only event. We sent out save-the-dates and invitations a couple of months ago with a clear note saying adults only for the wedding. We included a separate RSVP for anyone who wanted to bring a +1, but we specifically mentioned no kids. Most people were fine with it, but Danielle lost it when she received her invitation. She immediately called me. accusing me of excluding her children and claiming that it was unfair to ask her to come to the wedding without them. I explained my reasoning, telling her that it wasn't personal, but we had decided on an adults-only event, and I hoped she would understand. She didn't. She demanded that I make an exception for her kids, especially since we're family, and insisted that it was ridiculous to exclude them. She even said that if I didn't allow them to come, she wouldn't be attending the wedding at all. I tried to remain calm and told her that I was sorry she felt that way, but my decision was final. I couldn't make an exception just for her. At this point, Danielle started accusing me of being selfish and ruining family relationships for something as simple as a wedding guest list. She made it clear that if her kids weren't invited, neither was she, and that I would regret this decision in the future. I didn't budge, and after some tense back and forth, she hung up on me. I figured that would be the end of it. But a week later, I found out she had been telling other family members that I was discriminating against her kids and that I was being unreasonable and cold-hearted. A few of our mutual family members started reaching out to me, expressing concern that I was making a huge mistake by not letting Danielle's kids attend. Some of them even suggested that I should have just made an exception for her, given all the history of helping her out and being so close with her family. This situation really started to eat at me. I began questioning whether I was in the wrong for being so firm about my wedding plans. Maybe I was being unreasonable. I started feeling guilty, wondering if I was making a big deal over something small, but then I reminded myself that this wasn't just about the kids. It was about Danielle's behavior and how she had lied about me and made drama where there didn't need to be any. This is my wedding, and I wanted it to be stress-free and not overshadowed by unnecessary conflict. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I was right. I don't want to let someone who has betrayed my trust and caused unnecessary drama to dictate the terms of my big day. But at the same time, I know it's causing a rift in the family. A few people have started taking sides, and it feels like the situation is getting out of hand. I haven't heard back from Danielle directly since the last confrontation, but I know she's been bad-mouthing me to other relatives. A few have suggested I make peace with her for the sake of family harmony, but I really don't feel like I should have to bend over backwards for someone who has been so dishonest with me. So, AITA for refusing to make an exception for my sister-in-law and her kids at my wedding, even though it's causing family drama. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me because of my illness. So I, 28M, have a sister, Jessica, 32F, who is getting married to her fiancé, James, 34M, in a few months. We've had a somewhat strained relationship over the years, mainly due to her being, well, difficult. She's always been the golden child in the family, and I've often been the black sheep, but that's a whole different issue I'll get into if needed. To give some context, I have a chronic illness that I've been dealing with for the last 6 years. It's something that's invisible most of the time, and I don't usually bring it up because, frankly, I don't like being treated differently. The nature of the illness is that it can flare up unexpectedly, and when it does, it can be debilitating. I have good days and bad days, but overall, I manage it. My doctors say I'm doing well, but it's still something I live with on a day-to-day basis. Jessica has always had a hard time understanding the reality of living with a chronic condition. She's the type of person who believes that if you just think positive or push through, everything will work out. So when I told her about my illness years ago, she didn't really get it. She often brushed it off and made comments like, "You're just being dramatic," or "You'll get over it." I try to be understanding about her lack of empathy. I get that some people just don't understand chronic illness unless they've experienced it themselves. But as time went on, I found that her lack of compassion really hurt. She was always pushing me to attend events, be more active, and be normal, even when I physically couldn't. Anyway, fast forward to her wedding planning. She had been planning the wedding for a year, and for months, I was in the loop about what was going on. She asked me to be a part of her bridal party, which I initially accepted, despite knowing that it might be a challenge for me, given the health problems I deal with. I was honest with her about my condition and explained that I might need accommodations or that there could be days I might not be able to participate in certain activities, but that I'd do my best. She was fine with that at first, but as the wedding day drew closer, the stress started to get to her. The dress fittings, the guest list drama, the last-minute changes. I get it, weddings are stressful, and I try to be understanding. But then she started getting more and more agitated with me. She made comments like, "You need to get your shit together for this wedding, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and you're being so negative." She was frustrated with me for not being able to commit 100% to the events surrounding the wedding. I had to back out of some things because of flare-ups of my condition, and that really seemed to upset her. She would often ask, "Why can't you just be normal?" Or, "Why do you always have to make everything about your illness?" Eventually, it came to a head. About 2 weeks ago, Jessica called me and told me that she was disinviting me from her wedding. She said that my illness was causing too much drama, and she didn't want it ruining her special day. She told me that I could still attend the ceremony if I wanted, but that I wasn't welcome at the reception or any of the other events. She also said that I should stop being selfish and ruining her wedding with my problems. I was completely blindsided. I've always been there for her, even when she's been awful to me, and this felt like the ultimate betrayal. I asked her if she was serious, and she said, "Yes, I can't keep dealing with your illness. It's just too much, and I'm done." She hung up on me after that. I spent the next few days in disbelief. I've always tried to be a supportive brother, and I've always understood that weddings are stressful, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I talked to my parents about it, and they were shocked too. My mom is furious with Jessica, but my dad is taking Jessica's side, saying that it's her special day and she shouldn't have to deal with extra stress. I'm hurt and confused. I've already spent years trying to make her understand my illness, but it feels like nothing I do is good enough. I feel like I've been completely thrown aside because I'm not perfect or easy enough for her to handle. I tried talking to her again, but she won't pick up the phone or respond to my messages. The thing is, I know that I can't force her to understand my situation, but I also feel like I can't let her treat me like this. I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable for not just accepting her decision and moving on. My friends have told me that she's being totally selfish and that I'm not in the wrong here. But part of me wonders if maybe I should just let it go and not make a bigger deal out of this. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me because of my illness? Should I just suck it up and go? Or is this the last straw in a long history of me being treated poorly by her? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.